In a small colony on the edge of the galaxy, Jack stood quietly outside his small apartment, gazing at the stars above. He was just an ordinary human, living a simple life. He had never imagined that one day he would be chosen for something so extraordinary. Yet here he was, selected to represent humanity at the Grand Intergalactic Peace Summit. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations were coming together, and somehow, a small colony like his was now part of that world. Jack was nervous, but at the same time, a sense of pride swelled within him. The Peace Summit was being held on the home planet of the Crinean Empire, a race that had existed for thousands of years, known for their advanced technology and wisdom. The Crinean Empire was vast, spanning multiple star systems, and its people were famous for their strength and intelligence. The Emperor's family was one of the most powerful in the galaxy, and the youngest member of that family, Princess Alira, was already becoming a legend in her own right. People spoke of her wisdom and grace, but no one knew much about her personal life. She had always been a mystery. Jack had been briefed on the summit's importance. As a human representative, he was tasked with making sure humanity's voice was heard. However, he hadn't expected to be called upon by anyone personally. And yet, when the grand ceremony began, something unusual happened. The hall was filled with delegates from all corners of the galaxy, and the atmosphere was tense. Conversations buzzed as leaders exchanged ideas, but Jack felt like an outsider in the midst of it all. He stood in a quiet corner, observing the impressive Crinean structures that surrounded him. Everything was so different from what he knew. The architecture, the advanced technology, even the air felt different. Then, Princess Alira entered the room. She moved with the grace of a dancer, her golden robes flowing behind her like liquid sunlight. Her presence seemed to command attention, and even the most powerful leaders in the room fell silent as she passed. Jack's eyes widened as she walked past him. He had heard about her beauty, but nothing had prepared him for the reality. She was breathtaking, elegant, composed, and radiating a kind of authority that was impossible to ignore. Jack was mesmerized by her, but quickly reminded himself that he was here on business, not to stare at royalty. He turned his attention back to the summit, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to happen. As the summit continued, Jack found himself near the center of the room, listening intently to the discussions taking place. Then, unexpectedly, the attention of the entire room shifted. Princess Alira had entered the stage. She stood before the crowd, her eyes scanning the audience with a sharp intelligence. There was a moment of silence before she spoke, her voice calm yet powerful. "I have made my decision," she announced, her gaze sweeping across the room. "I have chosen a human to represent not only your people but also your spirit in the coming days." A hush fell over the room as everyone turned their attention toward her. Jack felt his heart race. Who could she possibly be talking about? He was just one of many delegates from Earth, and there was no reason why she would choose him over anyone else. But then her eyes locked onto his. "Jack," she said, her voice clear and steady, "you will be my representative for the duration of this summit. Your presence is vital to the future of this galaxy, and I believe you possess a unique quality that can guide us toward a new era of peace." Jack felt his breath catch in his throat. He had been chosen, not just as a representative, but personally by Princess Alira herself. The room buzzed with murmurs as everyone looked to him in disbelief. How could a simple human like him be singled out by someone of such importance? Alira's eyes remained fixed on Jack, and despite the weight of her gaze, he felt an odd sense of calm. There was no arrogance in her expression, no sense of superiority. She was simply stating a truth that Jack didn't fully understand yet. The princess smiled faintly before turning to the other leaders. "Let us move forward with unity. Jack will be by my side, and together, we will ensure the peace we all seek." Jack couldn't believe what was happening. He had heard of the princess's wisdom, her calm demeanor, but he never imagined he would be the one to work so closely with her. Why had she chosen him? What did she see in him that the others didn't? As the ceremony concluded, Jack was escorted to a private room to meet with the princess. His mind raced with questions, but when he entered the room, Alira was already seated, waiting for him with a soft, welcoming smile. "You may be wondering why I chose you," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I have my reasons, and I believe you are the right person to help guide us toward a future of peace." Jack nodded, though he was still in shock. "I'm honored, Your Highness," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "But I'm not sure I understand." Alira's smile grew a little wider. "In time, you will. For now, all I ask is that you trust me. We have much to do, and I believe we can do it together." And just like that, Jack's world shifted. The simple life he had known was gone, replaced by a new path that was far more complicated than anything he had ever imagined. He wasn't just a diplomat anymore. He had been chosen by the princess herself, and somehow, he knew his life would never be the same again. As the doors to the room closed behind him, Jack took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, he felt a strange sense of destiny pulling him forward. He didn't know what Alira's choice meant yet, but he was about to find out. Jack sat alone in his quarters that night, his mind racing with everything that had happened. How had he, a simple human from a small colony, become the personal representative of Princess Alira? He had no answers. The room around him was quiet, the soft hum of the lights the only sound. He couldn't sleep, and his thoughts kept drifting back to her, the young princess who seemed so calm and composed, yet had chosen him for a task he still didn't fully understand. The ceremony had ended hours ago, but Jack still felt the weight of Alira's gaze on him. Her words echoed in his mind. "You will be my representative." It wasn't just a diplomatic gesture. There was something more behind her choice, something personal. After what felt like hours of tossing and turning, Jack finally gave up on sleep. He stood up and walked toward the window, looking out at the bustling city below. The lights from the skyscrapers stretched far and wide, a glowing testament to the power and reach of the Crinean Empire. He wondered how long it had taken them to build such an empire, and how they managed to keep it together for so many centuries. Was this the kind of future Alira wanted for herself? Or was there more to her than the perfect princess everyone saw? The knock at the door startled him out of his thoughts. "Come in," Jack called, surprised by the visitor. He had expected to be left alone, at least for a while. The door slid open, and a tall figure entered the room. It was one of Alira's personal attendants, a woman dressed in the regal attire of the royal court. She bowed respectfully as she entered. "Your presence is requested, Jack," the attendant said with a gentle smile. "The princess wishes to speak with you." Jack nodded, his curiosity piqued. "Of course. Lead the way." The attendant led him down the quiet hallways of the royal palace, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the silence. As they walked, Jack couldn't help but notice the intricate decorations on the walls, the paintings of past emperors and empresses, their proud faces staring down at him. It was a reminder of the weight of history that Alira carried on her shoulders. Jack wondered if she ever felt overwhelmed by the expectations placed on her as the future ruler of the empire. When they reached the princess's private chamber, the attendant paused and turned to Jack. "The princess is waiting for you inside." With a deep breath, Jack entered. Alira sat at a large table, a map of the galaxy spread out in front of her. She was surrounded by various holographic screens, each displaying different star systems and information about the Empire's allies and enemies. Despite her regal appearance, she seemed deeply focused, her brow furrowed in concentration. When she noticed Jack entering, she looked up with a smile. "Ah, Jack. Thank you for coming," she said, her voice as calm as ever. "Please, sit." Jack took a seat across from her, his mind still whirling. The princess didn't waste any time. "You must have questions," Alira said, her eyes meeting his. "I sense that you're curious about why I chose you." Jack hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Yes, Your Highness, I do have questions. I'm honored by your choice, but I don't fully understand why you picked me. I'm just a human diplomat. I'm not anyone special." Alira leaned forward slightly, her eyes softening. "That's where you're wrong, Jack. You may not see it now, but you possess qualities that are rare among your kind. The humans I've met are full of resilience, creativity, and strength. These are the traits I believe can help guide not just my empire, but the galaxy toward peace." Jack was taken aback by her words. "But I'm not a warrior or a great leader. I don't have the skills you're used to seeing in your people." Alira smiled, a soft, knowing smile. "And that's exactly why I chose you. I've seen many leaders, many warriors, but it's the quiet strength of humans that fascinates me. Your species has an ability to adapt, to find solutions to problems in ways others can't even imagine. That's what I need beside me, Jack." Jack felt a strange warmth in his chest as he listened to her. He had never thought of humans in such a light. To him, he was just an ordinary person doing his job. But Alira made him feel like he was capable of something more. She wasn't just the princess of an empire. She was someone who saw potential in him, someone who believed in him. "You've probably heard the rumors about me," Alira continued, her tone becoming more serious. "That I am destined to rule this empire, to follow in the footsteps of my father. But there's more to me than just a title, Jack. I am a person, just like you. And like you, I have doubts, fears, and desires. I am not immune to the pressure of my responsibilities." Jack nodded slowly, understanding more than he had before. "I can't imagine the weight you must carry. Being a ruler of such a vast empire, it must be overwhelming." "It is," Alira admitted, "but it is also what I was born to do. I didn't choose this life, Jack. It was chosen for me. But I do have a choice in how I live it. And that's why I chose you. I need someone who can help me see beyond my duty, beyond the expectations of my family and my people. Someone who can remind me that there's more to life than just politics and power." Jack felt a connection with her in that moment. They were both caught in situations that were beyond their control, both trying to find their own paths. But Alira had chosen him to be part of her journey, and somehow that made him feel important. "Thank you," Jack said softly, his voice filled with gratitude. "I'll do my best to help you, Your Highness." Alira smiled again, a genuine, warm smile. "I know you will, Jack. I believe in you." As he left her chambers later that night, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. He had been chosen not just for his skills, but for something deeper, something Alira saw in him that he hadn't yet discovered in himself. And as he walked back to his quarters, he realized that his life had already changed. Whatever happened next, he was now a part of something much bigger than he had ever imagined. The next few days were a blur for Jack. He found himself caught up in a whirlwind of meetings, diplomatic events, and planning sessions with Princess Alira. He was no longer just an observer. He was a key player in the empire's political landscape. Every move he made now felt significant. He had been entrusted with more than just his usual diplomatic duties. He had become Alira's right hand, her confidant, and in some ways, her protector. The more time Jack spent with her, the more he began to see the challenges that came with being a princess. Alira wasn't just a leader. She was a symbol of the empire. People looked to her for guidance, for strength, and for decisions that could shape the future of millions. The pressure was enormous. Jack could sense her struggle, the weight of responsibility that hung on her every decision. But despite the tension and the ever-present eyes of the empire upon her, Alira remained calm and composed. Jack couldn't help but admire her ability to stay focused, to stay true to her vision. She was strong, and yet, at times, Jack saw a vulnerability in her that no one else seemed to notice. One evening, as they were finishing a lengthy negotiation with a rival planet's ambassador, Alira took Jack aside. The meeting had been long and exhausting, and Jack could see that she was tired, though she hid it well. "Jack," she said, her voice softer than usual, "I need your help with something. It's not a task for the Empire, but for me personally. Jack raised an eyebrow. Surprise. Of course, Your Highness. What is it? Elira hesitated for a moment, her gaze drifting toward the vast windows that overlooked the palace gardens. The soft light of the setting sun bathed everything in a warm glow. I've been thinking a lot about the future, she said quietly. Not just of the Empire, but of my own future. My duty is to my people, but there are parts of me that no one sees, parts that are mine alone. Jack nodded, unsure where this conversation was going, but sensing it was important. He remained silent, giving her space to speak. I've been surrounded by people all my life. Elira continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Advisors, soldiers, ambassadors. Everyone has an opinion on what I should do, on who I should be. But no one asks me what I want. I don't know what I want anymore, Jack. I don't know why I'm outside of my title. Jack could see the sadness in her eyes now, a crack in the armor of the strong and capable princess she showed the world. He had never imagined that someone as powerful as Elira could feel so lost, so uncertain about her own identity. You're not alone, Jack said gently. I understand more than you think. We all have our moments of doubt. No one is immune to it. Elira looked at him, her expression softening. I envy you, Jack. You get to live your life as you choose. You don't have the weight of an entire empire resting on your shoulders. You don't have the world watching your every move. Jack felt a pang of sympathy for her. He had always thought of Elira as a person who had everything figured out, someone who was destined for greatness. But now he saw the human side of her, the part of her that longed for freedom, for self-discovery. I don't have everything figured out, Jack said, offering a small smile. But I do know that no one should carry the weight of the world alone. You don't have to be perfect, Elira. You're allowed to be uncertain, to make mistakes. You're allowed to figure things out. Elira smiled back at him, though it was a tired smile. I appreciate your words, Jack. You have a way of making things seem less overwhelming. As the evening wore on, Jack found himself staying by her side more often. He helped with the endless flow of paperwork and meetings, but he also spent time listening to Elira. He could see her opening up more, bit by bit. The princess was learning to trust him, to see him as more than just a diplomat. She was beginning to rely on him as a friend. One day, as they were walking through the royal gardens, Elira stopped and looked up at the sky. The stars were just beginning to appear, twinkling softly against the darkening sky. I've been thinking, Elira said suddenly, about my place in the universe, my role in all of this, and I've realized that I can't do it alone. I need people I can trust, people who can help me see beyond the throne. Jack nodded, understanding her words. You're not alone, Elira. You have me. And you have others who believe in you. She looked at him then, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Jack. I didn't know how much I needed someone like you until now. The two of them stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling in the cool evening air. Jack could feel the shift between them, a bond that had started as one of duty and responsibility, but was now becoming something much deeper. It wasn't just about politics or power anymore. It was about trust, friendship, and maybe, just maybe, something more. As the days passed, Jack continued to assist Elira with her responsibilities, but their relationship grew in ways neither of them could have predicted. He was no longer just a servant to the Empire. He was a confidant, a support, and a reminder to Elira that there was more to life than titles and expectations. And Jack, for the first time in his life, felt like he was part of something important, something bigger than himself. He had been chosen for a reason, not just by the princess, but by fate itself. The days seemed to pass by faster as Jack and Princess Elira spent more time together. Their bond had grown stronger, but so had the challenges they faced. As much as Jack had grown accustomed to his new role by Elira's side, the realities of life in the Empire began to unfold in ways that were less than ideal. There were factions within the palace, political enemies, and secrets that no one dared to speak aloud. One evening, after a long series of meetings, Alira summoned Jack to her private chambers. Her face was more serious than usual, and her eyes held a glimmer of concern that Jack hadn't seen before. He could tell that something was troubling her. "Jack, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice steady, but filled with an unspoken weight. "There are forces within the Empire that are not pleased with my decisions. They are not as supportive as they claim to be." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You mean the Council?" Alira nodded. "Yes, the Council, and several high-ranking officials who want to steer the Empire in a different direction. They think I'm too idealistic. They think I lack the strength to lead properly. They don't understand that my vision is not just about power, but about creating a lasting peace." Jack listened carefully, his thoughts racing. Alira's vision for the future of the Empire had always been one of fairness and justice. She believed in diplomacy, in finding common ground, and in building relationships that would benefit not just the Empire, but the galaxy as a whole. To think that there were those who wanted to see her fail was troubling. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Jack asked, his voice sincere. Alira turned to face him, her gaze steady. "I don't want to involve you in these matters, Jack. You have enough on your plate already. But there is something I need. Something personal." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "There's a rumor. It's been circulating for weeks, and I'm afraid it's only a matter of time before it reaches the public. The rumor is that my chosen successor might not be legitimate." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He had never heard of such a rumor before, and the implications were enormous. If the public or the Council believed that Alira's claim to the throne was in doubt, it could spark a political crisis. The stability of the entire Empire could be at risk. "You're talking about your father, right?" Jack asked carefully, trying to understand the situation. Alira nodded again, her expression heavy. "Yes. The rumor is that my father's health has been deteriorating much faster than anyone knew. They are saying that the Empire might need a new leader sooner than expected. If they believe my claim is in question, they will turn against me. They already have one foot out the door, and I'm afraid that this will push them over the edge." Jack felt a pang of worry for her. Alira had worked so hard to maintain the stability of the Empire, and now her enemies were looking for any weakness they could exploit. "You need to act fast," Jack said, his mind already racing with ideas. "We need to find the source of the rumor, expose it for what it is, and stop it before it grows any larger." Alira shook her head. "It's not that simple, Jack. The rumor is being spread by someone very powerful, someone with a lot of influence, and if I confront them directly, it could be seen as a sign of weakness. We can't afford that. My only option is to hold my ground and prove them wrong." Jack wasn't sure what to say. He could see the determination in Alira's eyes, but he also saw the burden she was carrying. It wasn't just about defending her throne anymore. It was about protecting everything she had worked for, everything she believed in. "I believe in you, Alira," Jack said, his voice strong and unwavering. "You have the strength to overcome this, and you don't have to do it alone." Alira looked at him, her eyes softening. "Thank you, Jack. Your support means more to me than you know." But even as Jack reassured her, he couldn't help but feel the weight of what was at stake. The Empire was teetering on the edge of uncertainty, and Alira's enemies were closing in. There were people who wanted to see her fail, to take away everything she had fought for. Jack had been pulled into this world of politics and power struggles, but now it felt like he had more at stake than ever before. The future of the Empire and the princess he had come to care about deeply hung in the balance. The following days were filled with tension. Alira had made it clear that the rumor needed to be quashed quietly, without drawing attention. So Jack worked behind the scenes, quietly gathering information, speaking to allies, and trying to uncover the source of the rumor. As he delved deeper into the heart of the Empire's politics, Jack realized just how deep the corruption ran. There were whispers in the corridors, secret meetings that took place in shadowed corners, and whispers of betrayal from those closest to Alira. The empire was not as united as it appeared. The stability that Alira had worked so hard to maintain was being threatened from all sides. One evening, Jack received a secret message, a tip that could change everything. The message was simple, but its contents were anything but. It pointed to a high-ranking council member who had been secretly meeting with rival factions, plotting against Alira. This was the man who had been behind the rumors, the one who had been sowing discord in the empire for months. Jack knew what he had to do. He couldn't let this go on any longer. Alira's future, and the future of the empire, was at stake. The days that followed were a blur of whispers and hidden dangers. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen, that the quiet storm brewing in the empire was closing in on them. Alira, still steadfast in her belief that the empire could be saved, had become increasingly distant. The stress of her position, combined with the constant threat to her claim, had started to take a toll on her. Jack noticed the subtle changes. Her once lively demeanor had dulled, her eyes filled with a quiet exhaustion. Despite this, she never allowed the empire to see her weakness. Alira was a symbol of strength, and she would remain that way, no matter the cost. But Jack knew that the pressure she was under was immense. The council's whispers grew louder each day, and it seemed that every new piece of information Jack uncovered only added to the complexity of the situation. One evening, Jack arrived at Alira's private chambers to find her alone, staring out of the window. The palace courtyard below was peaceful, the night sky illuminated by distant stars. But in the silence of the room, a sense of urgency lingered in the air. "Alira," Jack began, his voice steady but filled with concern. "I've learned something important. The council member behind the rumors, it's worse than we thought. He's been meeting with foreign allies. There's a faction forming against you, and they are planning to move soon." Alira turned to him, her expression a mixture of determination and sadness. "I know," she said quietly. "I felt it too. There's always been a shadow hanging over me, but now it feels like it's swallowing the light." Jack approached her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You don't have to face this alone, Alira. We can stop them together." She shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's not just about me, Jack. The empire is crumbling. The council has grown greedy, and their hunger for power has infected every part of this world. I've done everything I can to maintain peace, but it's clear now that peace isn't enough. There are those who want chaos, who want control, and they will stop at nothing to get it." Jack could see the weight of her words sinking in, and he knew she wasn't exaggerating. There was a coldness in her eyes that spoke of the harsh realities of the empire's politics, but Jack also knew that there was still hope. He had witnessed firsthand the strength and resolve that Alira possessed. She was not someone who would easily be broken. "I won't let them tear you down, Alira," Jack said, his voice unwavering. "We will fight back. There's still time to stop this." Alira looked at him, a faint smile crossing her lips. "You always know how to make me feel better, Jack. But we can't fight with force alone. We need to outsmart them. We need to find a way to expose the corruption without letting them see our hand." Jack nodded, deep in thought. He had learned that the true power in the empire wasn't just in the hands of the council. It was in the shadows, hidden behind closed doors. The empire's strength came from its people, from its alliances, and from its secrets. And now, it was time to use those very secrets to their advantage. "We need to expose the truth," Jack said. "If we can gather enough evidence, we can take down the council members and their allies before they have a chance to strike." Alira's eyes sparkled with a new sense of purpose. "Yes, but we'll need help. The council members who support me are few, but they're still loyal. If we can gather them together, we might have a chance to counter the plot before it goes public." Jack agreed. "I'll start reaching out to them. We need to act fast. The longer we wait, the more power they gain." As the night wore on, Jack and Alira worked together, planning their next move. They knew the risks, and they understood that they were walking a fine line. One misstep, and they could find themselves on the wrong side of a war they weren't prepared for. But Alira wasn't someone who shied away from challenges. She had been raised to lead, and no matter how dire the situation seemed, she refused to give up. She had fought for the Empire's future for years, and now she would fight for it once more. The next morning, Jack set out to meet with the loyalists Alira had mentioned. The first was a trusted captain in the Royal Guard, a man named Darius, who had stood by Alira since her early days on the throne. He was known for his sharp mind and unwavering loyalty. Jack knew that Darius would be the key to rallying the military forces they needed. "Darius," Jack said as they met in a secluded courtyard, far from prying eyes, "Alira needs your help. There's a plot against her, and we need to move quickly to expose it before it's too late." Darius studied Jack for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he processed the information. "I suspected something for a while," he said quietly, "but I never had the proof. If you're sure, I'm with you. I'll stand by the princess, no matter the cost." Jack breathed a sigh of relief. One ally was a good start, but there was still more work to be done. Over the following days, he met with other loyalists, trusted officials, military commanders, and even a few former enemies who had seen the light and now supported Alira's vision. Each meeting brought them closer to their goal, but also closer to the dangers lurking in the Empire's shadows. The web of betrayal that had been spun around Alira was vast. There were eyes watching their every move, and it wouldn't be long before their plan would be uncovered. Time was running out, and the Empire's fate hung in the balance. The tension in the air was palpable as Jack and Alira put their plan into motion. Every step they took felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong move could bring everything crashing down. The stakes were higher than ever, and with each passing day, they felt the walls of the Empire closing in around them. The loyalists they had gathered were few but strong. Their mission was clear: expose the truth before the conspirators could strike. Jack met with Darius again in the darkened corridors of the palace. The Royal Guard captain had agreed to help them, but his loyalty was being tested. The conspirators were moving fast, and their influence was growing. Darius had already begun to see some of his fellow guards turning their allegiance, and that frightened him. The foundation of the Empire was trembling. "We need to move quickly, Darius," Jack said, his voice low and urgent. "Alira's enemies are closing in. If we don't act now, we might lose everything." Darius nodded, his brow furrowed with concern. "I've heard rumors. Some of the guards are already in contact with the rebels. They're planning something big, but they're keeping their cards close to their chest. I don't know who to trust anymore." Jack gripped his arm, a sense of resolve in his eyes. "We trust those we know, and we keep the rest in the dark. It's the only way." Darius agreed, but his concern didn't ease. "We'll need more than just loyalty. We need solid evidence to expose the traitors. If we don't have that, even the loyalists might turn on us." Jack's mind raced. He knew Darius was right. Evidence was crucial. Without it, their accusations would be nothing more than rumors, and in a place like the palace, rumors could destroy you just as easily as betrayal. The plot against Alira was far-reaching, and they needed a way to prove the conspiracy before it unraveled them all. Over the next few days, Jack and Alira worked in secret, meeting with trusted allies and gathering information. They searched through hidden chambers, sifting through old records and listening for any whispers of truth. It was like piecing together a puzzle, one that was slowly revealing the ugly face of corruption in the Empire. The more they uncovered, the more dangerous the situation became. The conspirators weren't just after Alira's throne. They were aiming to destabilize the entire empire. If they succeeded, chaos would reign. The people would suffer, and the empire would fall into the hands of those who cared nothing for its future. Jack knew that time was running out. Each day they spent searching for answers brought them closer to the point of no return. The walls were closing in, and soon they wouldn't have the luxury of moving in the shadows anymore. The game had changed. Alira, however, remained calm. She was a born leader, and her resolve never wavered, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Jack admired her strength, but he also worried. Her calmness masked a deep fear. She knew the Empire's fate rested in her hands, and if she failed, everything she had fought for would be lost. That evening, they met in her private chambers to discuss their next move. The palace had grown quieter, the halls echoing with the sound of distant footsteps. The tension in the air was like a coiled spring, ready to snap at any moment. "I found something," Jack said, his voice tinged with excitement. He pulled a small, worn letter from his coat. "It's a letter from one of the conspirators, sent to an ally outside the palace. It's not much, but it's a start." Alira's eyes narrowed as she took the letter. She read it carefully, her fingers brushing over the delicate paper. The letter was brief, but it contained enough information to confirm their worst fears. "This proves it," Alira said softly. "There's a plan in motion. They're coordinating with external forces, gathering armies to march against us. If they succeed, we'll be overwhelmed before we even have a chance to react." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The conspirators had already begun to mobilize. They were planning a rebellion, and Alira would be the first to fall. This wasn't just a political maneuver anymore. It was a war that could destroy everything. "We need to stop them," Jack said, his voice firm. "We have to expose this now before it's too late." Alira looked at him, her expression resolute. "I won't let them take the Empire from us. But we can't do it alone. We need more than just evidence. We need to unite the Empire, bring the people to our side. If they know the truth, they'll fight for us." Jack nodded. He understood now. It wasn't enough to take down the conspirators. They had to win the support of the people. The rebellion could only succeed if the people were behind them. But gaining that support wouldn't be easy. There were too many who had been swayed by the lies of the rebels, and convincing them to turn against their leaders would take more than just words. "We'll need to act fast," Jack said. "If we wait too long, they'll have already started their attack. We need to strike before they have a chance to gather their forces." Alira stood, her eyes burning with determination. "Then we'll do what we must. The Empire belongs to the people, and we will protect it, no matter the cost." Jack's heart swelled with pride as he looked at her. He knew that Alira was more than just a princess. She was a true leader, willing to sacrifice everything for her people. And with her by his side, he knew they had a chance to win. The next morning, they began putting their plan into action. Jack reached out to their allies, gathering them together for one final push. The conspirators had no idea what was coming. They thought they were in control, but they were wrong. As the sun rose, the Empire was on the brink of war. The final battle for its future was about to begin. The sun was setting over the Empire, casting a deep orange glow over the palace walls. Jack stood at the edge of the balcony, gazing out over the city. The streets below were crowded with people, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. Every step they had taken had led them to this moment. This final, dangerous stand. The conspirators had been exposed, but that was only the beginning. Now, it was a race against time to gather the support of the people and prepare for the rebellion that was inevitable. Alira joined him at the balcony, her presence steady and reassuring. She had been calm through the whole ordeal, but Jack knew she was as nervous as he was. The weight of the Empire rested on her shoulders, and the future of everyone depended on their next move. "We can't fail," Alira said quietly, her voice carrying the quiet determination that Jack had come to admire. "If we do, everything we fought for will be lost." Jack nodded. He had always known that this would be the hardest battle they would face. The conspirators had built a network of allies within the Empire, and their reach was vast. But they also had something the rebels didn't: a united cause and the truth on their side. Jack believed in the people, in their ability to see through the lies and stand with Alira. He just had to make them believe it too. "Darius and the Loyalists are ready," Jack said, his voice steady. We'll need to strike fast and strike hard. If we give the conspirators a chance to organize, we'll be facing a full-scale war. Alira's gaze hardened as she turned to him. Then we won't give them that chance. We have the evidence, we have the people. Now, we make our move. Jack felt a surge of pride. The princess was ready. She was no longer just the heir to the throne. She was a leader who had earned her place. With her at the helm, there was no obstacle they couldn't overcome. Together, they had uncovered the truth. And now, they were ready to take back the empire. The two of them made their way to the war room, where Darius and the other loyalists were waiting. The room was dark, lit only by the flickering light of lanterns. A map of the empire was spread across the table, marked with strategic points of interest. The rebellion was poised to attack from multiple fronts, and they needed to be ready for anything. "We don't have much time," Darius said, his voice grim. "The conspirators will be moving soon. We need to rally the people, get them on our side, or else we'll lose." Alira's expression was focused. "We will rally them. We'll show them the truth. The people won't stand for this treason. They'll fight for their empire." Jack's heart swelled with hope. He believed in her. He believed in them. "We'll take the city center first," Darius continued. "That's where most of the conspirators are stationed. We'll need to move quickly, keep the element of surprise." Alira nodded. "I'll speak to the people. They need to know that we're fighting for them." It was a dangerous plan, but it was their best chance. The palace was already on high alert, and if they waited too long, the conspirators would make their move. The time had come for action. The loyalists were ready. They'd been training in secret, preparing for this day, and now the moment had arrived. Jack's role was clear: to coordinate with the allies and ensure the troops were in position. The city was a labyrinth of streets and alleys, but Jack knew them well. They had to stay one step ahead of the rebels. As the night deepened, they moved. The streets were eerily quiet, the tension hanging thick in the air. Alira, with her guards and a few trusted aides, made her way to the city center. Jack and Darius led the rest of the loyalists through the back streets, taking careful measures to avoid detection. The final confrontation would happen in the square, the heart of the empire. Alira's voice would be the spark that ignited the fire of rebellion, but it was up to the people to fan the flames. Jack's thoughts raced. Every decision now carried enormous weight. One wrong move could cost them everything. When they reached the square, they saw the rebellion's forces gathering. The conspirators were waiting for the signal to strike, but they hadn't expected Alira to be there. As she stepped into the light, her presence was commanding. She was no longer just a princess. She was the voice of the people. "My people," she called out, her voice carrying across the square. "For too long, we've been betrayed by those who claim to serve us. They've taken our trust and turned it into lies, seeking to destroy all that we've built together. But no longer. The truth is now in the open. We are not the enemies of the empire. We are its protectors. Stand with us, and together we will restore what was stolen." The crowd was silent at first, but as her words sank in, a murmur rippled through the masses. Jack could feel the shift in the air. The people were waking up. They were realizing that the truth was on their side. The conspirators were quick to react. They called for their soldiers to move in, but it was too late. Darius and the loyalists had already positioned themselves, blocking the streets, trapping the rebels in the square. The battle was swift, the clash of swords ringing out as the loyalists and rebels fought for control. But the tide had turned. The people, now rallied behind Alira, surged forward, their voices chanting in unison for justice. In the end, it was the power of the truth that won the day. The conspirators were exposed, their forces scattered, and the empire was saved. Jack stood at Alira's side as the last of the rebels were taken into custody, their plan defeated. Alira turned to him, a tired but triumphant smile on her face. "We did it." Jack smiled back. "Together." And so, the empire was restored, Alira's rule was secured, not by force, but by the strength of her people. The conspirators who had sought to tear it all down were gone, and with them, the shadow of fear that had once loomed over the empire. Jack had found his place in this new world, by Alira's side, not as a servant, but as her equal. And though the road ahead would be long and full of challenges, they would face it together, united in their shared vision for the future. The empire had chosen them, and together they would lead it to greatness.